The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Keller, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and Ranking Member Comer, and our witnesses for being here today. The Second Amendment protects Americans' constitutional right to keep and bear arms. And as a gun owner myself, I have immense respect for the responsibility that comes with owning and operating a firearm. Ms. Okafor, as an instructor, can you please explain to us or walk us through some of the best practices you teach regarding firearm storage and safety?
Of course, depending on what type of firearm, but in general, overall, when it comes to storage, it's usually based on what is best, of course, for that person in their home. Also, if they're going to be taking it on their person outside of the home or keeping it in their home. But usually it's, of course, to keep it in a safe place, a place that is readily accessible to them and those who are able to use it safely. And in storage to make sure that it's something that isn't in plain sight to anybody who's not able to use a firearm in a safe manner.
Basically, the responsibility that comes with the right of owning a firearm.
Absolutely. It comes down at the end of the day to the individual, the family members, to make sure that those who are in the home are able to properly use a firearm in a safe manner. I am a mother of 2 children, and when they're of age, as early as they can, I'm going to make sure that they know how to properly use and store a firearm. That's the responsibility of any firearm instructor and owner.
Thank you. There were almost 40 million background checks performed last year, yet some criminals seem to still go under the radar. What rules and regulations are in place for those who lawfully possess and use firearms?
The rules and regulations go from safety, of course, of making sure that they know the 4 safety rules of making sure they know their target and what's behind it. They know that any firearm should be seen as loaded. There's several different safety measures that any instructor is going to impart upon their person that they're working with. When it comes down to it, though, it comes down to their home and their environment and what's best for their environment to make sure, again, that they're able to defend themselves in their home in a quick manner.
Yeah. Do you think stricter laws on firearm manufacturers would actually curb violent crime?
No, I mean, right now we already have strict laws on gun manufacturers. The fact that, again, the ATF has already rules of an FFL, for example. The fact that, again, the typical person, it's very, very expensive to even acquire any type of fully automatic firearm to begin with, because the Hughes Amendment in the 1986 amendment that kept it very, very hard for most people of any type of lower to middle class socioeconomic status to be able to achieve to have a firearm in that sense. When it comes down to it, most people can't afford most AR-15s because of the prices that are behind it. So when it comes down to it, ATF and the FFL laws that go with the ATF have put many restrictions already on gun manufacturers as it is.
It was already mentioned about you know, the estimation of how many guns are used in self-defense. You know, it's a CDC ordered a study, and it estimated, you know, 500,000 to 3 million times a year in self-defense. So how would additional rules and regulations impact Americans' ability to protect themselves, especially women and people in communities of high crime?
These additional gun restrictions have already shown to restrict those, particularly those of a lower socioeconomic status. I know we were referring to this buy now, pay later. The thing is that really what it's going down to is that you're making it harder, you're putting a financial barrier on those who only quote unquote crime is that they unfortunately don't have the means of paying for something which is their fundamental right to exercise is with the Second Amendment. So that's that's unfortunately what we're seeing when we see these gun restrictions. We're seeing it really keep people who should be able to protect themselves and their families from being able to do so because of financial barriers.
Yeah, thank you. It's time for Democrats to stop villainizing law-abiding citizens for exercising their constitutionally protected rights and instead focus on enforcing current law by supporting law enforcement and full prosecution of violent individuals and criminals. As President Reagan once said, we must reject the idea that every time a law is broken, society is guilty rather than the lawbreaker. It's time to restore the American precept that each individual is accountable for his actions. Thank you, and I yield back.